Okay, so to start this video off, I did not like how the previous highlighting was, so I'm starting from scratch. And basically what I'm doing is just taking my base coat and just going over everything. I've already painted other things on the model, so it's not feasible to strip it down. So luckily, I still had plenty of my base coat and I can just do that. So what you're going to do is just go back over the area that you want to redo, let that completely dry, and then we'll start the next step. Alright, so now we're just going to take a wash, and in this case I'm using Darucci Violet, and we're going to cover the entirety of the cape. When it's done, it should look a lot like this. When it's done, then we're going to take our base color and we're going to go back through and hit the raised edges to kind of bring back some of that detail, and then that'll give our pathway to doing more highlights down the road. So now I take a little bit of white and mix it in with my base tone to get my first highlight. And I'm basically just blocking that in on the higher edges so that way we can feather it together using wet blending. To wet blend, you're going to take your highlight color and you're going to thin it down with water, and you're going to pull it towards your highlight, and that will help in multiple coats to soften the edges. Now, it is very important to remember that you want to let each coat dry completely before going on, otherwise you will end up messing it up, and that's what I did on the first one, and that's why I went back and redid it. So just go slow, let things dry about 15 to 20 minutes in between each, and then you can go to your next coat. And it'll probably take you about 5 or 6 coats to get this done, but once you do, the results are well worth it. And as you can see, the edge is starting to blend completely in with the previous color. To kind of speed things up, I went ahead and did the next highlight color, which was just adding a little more white to the previous highlight. and I block that in. And I'm doing the same process with the wet blending, using the glaze effect, or the glazing, using the water to thin it down. That way it blends the previous into the current. And you'll just keep doing that until you reach your brightest highlight, which is going to be, I should have used a little white, or a lot more white mixed in with the previous highlight, but I just went with the base white, and it gave it more of a drastic, almost shiny effect. But if you use even more white, or mostly white with a little bit of your next brightest highlight, it should make it more of a smooth transition. And here you can see the stark transition between the brightest highlight, which was just the straight white without wet blending. This was a good indication on just how much the wet blending technique, or the glazing technique, softens that edge to where you almost can't see the transition. And we'll use the same principle as before, but this will be the final step. Just use that glaze technique to blend in the edge, and that will to tie it all together. Now, this didn't turn out 100% perfect, but I know that a lot of that has to do with my brushes and my technique, but I can only get better. Everything completely dries. I think I'm going to call this thing done. This was definitely it was something else. It was different. But yeah, I'm kind of enjoying it. I may do some highlights on the bow and the quiver and whatnot, but yeah. So this is now going to be playable. Once everything dries, I'll give it a matte coat and bring everything to a close. So yeah, the next thing we do is work on the dragon. If you notice something different, I've went ahead and kind of weathered the wings a bit because it's not a pristine dragon. If you want to check out the videos up to this point, go to my YouTube page if you're not already here. Subscribe, ring the bell, and there will be a D&D figure playlist. And there'll be a few more in there, but the tips and tricks that I used on this are in there. So don't forget that I have a Patreon. It is my means of funding these things. It helps me learn, helps me grow, helps me do things to help you all. It is patreon.com/NotSoAverageBuilder. And don't forget the most important thing: do not be an average builder. Be a not so average builder. It'll get you far.